went to do the White House Christmas card. I was drawing the White House. I was invited for dinner by it was George Bush at that time, the President and First Lady. And in my car, I had the International Space Station. So I drove right up to the front door of the White House. And I didn't have the nerve. I should have said, you want to come and see the painting before I deliver it to NASA. But I always remember driving up and thinking that painting got to go to the White House before it was delivered at NASA. And I'll just give you a quick, some of the other collections that I'm in, the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C., the Brooklyn Museum, the Smithsonian American Art Museum, as I said, the White House is, because of the White House Christmas card. And I work closely with the Arts and Embassies program, and also my paintings are all over. They're in amazing collections in Europe, there are some wonderful collections, some stellar contemporary collections in the States. And people ask, how do some of these things happen? And most of the highlights of my life have been phone calls. I was called by the White House, it was out of the blue, and I said, I have to go pick up my children, can you call me back? That was pick up time at school. Another honor that I'm actually very honored and excited to be part of is I was appointed by the President 10 years ago to the National Council of the Arts, and that is the advisory board for the National Endowment for the Arts. The only other female was Helen Frankenthaler on the board. There are, I think, 12 to 14 of us, and we advise the chairman of the National Endowment for the Arts, and we vote on all the grants for the arts in America, as well as the National Medal of Arts Awards. But that's been a real honor to get to see, and to, so the other hat I wear is a lot of supporting the arts and being an advocate for the arts besides being an artist, for arts and artists. But as I said, a lot of the things that have happened have been phone calls or just out of the blue, which the invitation to serve on the National Endowment for the Arts was also totally out of the blue. And same with NASA. I had a phone call and they were interested, speaking of blues, they were interested in my blues. And they asked if I would do a painting of the International Space Station, which was the first one I did. I think I did it in, I'd have to say 2002, so I'd have to double check. So the final painting is on exhibit at Kennedy Space Center, and then this was the companion piece that I did for the International Space Station. And as I said, these have never been outside of my flat files or my walls in my studio or home. So this is the first time that anyone has ever seen the studies and the works for NASA. So it's a really good introduction into how an artist thinks and paints. So there are 4 commissions that I have for NASA, which is really unusual. I think it's the most for a female living artist. But they kept on coming back to me after I did the International Space Station. They asked me to do the Columbian tribute when the Columbia disaster happened. And then they invited me to do the Discovery Shuttle return to flight after the Columbia tribute. And then the X-43, which was the fastest aircraft in the world. And which is fortunate for me, those are all, their drawings or artwork connected with those. But I wanted to start with talking about this painting because when they first asked me to do work for them, it was something that I was really excited about because I'm very curious and I'm always interested in learning. So I spent all the fall looking and reading and studying astronomy, studying the stars, kind of figuring out NASA as well as Laura Bush, as well as a lot of the work I did for like the New Yorker and New York Times gave me free rein. I also did a lot of work for Good Housekeeping and a poetry section. But they didn't say, we want you to do this. So I had to figure out how I would do the International Space Station. And the trick of the International Space Station is that it wasn't finished, and I don't think it's finished now, but it wasn't finished at the time, it was just in parts. The beauty of the International Space Station is that it's not just the United States, it's all these different countries in the world who are working together. I was fortunate to, when we were actually skiing in Austria, and after I'd been commissioned to do this, dumb luck was that the head of the International Space Station happened to be staying in the same hotel we were staying at. And it was one of those you stay in and you have dinner, so you see them all the time. And I went skiing with him and his wife for 2 days. So the poor man had me on all the lists asking all the questions like, what color is the sky, how would you do this? But he was, while we were, I don't know, taking off our ski boots, he was up there doing the program, working with Russia, doing programming for the International Space Station because he oversaw the whole program. So for me, that was really interesting to find out the collaboration. He unfortunately has passed away, but it was just a wonderful segment to work with this scientist who had come over with Werner von Braun and helped get the rocket program off the ground, literally, and he was really knowledgeable. And I was in a different setting, so I was comfortable asking questions. But that's part, when I look at this, I always think of Jesko because he was a real big help in this. So the question was, how do you do this? I got my astronomy magazines, I started reading, and you think, and then you start doing drawings. I bought a model and had a model built, which is still hanging in my studio. NASA sent me lots of photographs to work from. I worked closely with NASA. I became good friends with the person in charge of the art program, actually, because we worked so closely together. But I decided I would do it, I could do anything, but I decided I would do it from the top looking down. And so I had to make up a lot of parts because they weren't up there already, and use their projected ideas. But I also went down to, I made a couple of trips down to Cape Canaveral at Kennedy Space Center and NASA. So this is actually a good introduction. It's like, for an artist, what helps you create this painting? Because there was a lot of time spent doing research on this and not painting. So I had to get all the information, at least I felt I had to get all the information before I started to paint. So I was fortunate to have a VIP tour down at Kennedy Space Center. Did a lot of looking, thinking, as I went down, saw some of the modules. I wanted to have the sense of the Earth above, and I would recommend when you have a chance, come up and look at all the details in here, because the stars, and this is what I spent my time doing, how do you make the sky so it doesn't look like you're plucking little dots on the background? So and how do you do, if you're doing watercolor, which this is, how do you do watercolor if it's very opaque, because watercolor is such a translucent medium. So this was layers and layers and layers of color, and it wasn't just black. It's like greens and reds and blues, and then go on, probably like 25 or 30 so that I could get that black. Because honestly, I think if I just put black on, it would really deaden it, and having the multiple layers gives it a little bit of light. But you also want to have the sense that it's disappearing. And this is actually kind of fun for me to see too. You can see it in the comments. If you come up closely, I used different pigments, and the paper is white where the earth was. And then in here I mixed different colors of pigments or minerals and made my own paints. So there's gold and silver. And what I liked about that, and the reason I did that, and also pastels are in here. So what I liked is that when the light hits it, there's a reflection from the mineral pigments. And that, we want to have things that are close and far away, create a reality in the sense of depth. So this is really out of what I do. I do large landscape. I like to go inside and paint. So I'm not really a space painter, people are space painters, but I'm not a space painter. But this really pushed me in a different direction, and I absolutely love doing this. One of the tricks with watercolor is to keep the area white, and so this is all white. That's white paper. I think it's a little gray wash on it, but if you make a mistake, you're really in trouble. I just finished, it's considered the largest watercolor in the world from MoCA. They commissioned me to do this huge painting for their, it's 8 by 16 feet, for their new building, which opened 2 years ago. And it's in the prow of the building, which is 2 stories. It's beautiful, but that was also really tricky because you make a mistake, and I was working in really big panels, and it was scaffolding going up and down, back and forth, and ladders. And if I make a mistake, I'd have to redo the whole panel. So this was, you don't want to make a mistake, but I really did not want to make a mistake there. I'll also put a plug, if you happen to be in the Berkshires, please stop in North Adams to see the paintings. In this great spot in the front of the building.
We just saw.
You did, it's amazing. And it's really cool to be able to do that.
And my husband's a photographer, I took some great.
Good. One of the fun things is I got to meet the astronauts and spend time with astronauts. As I said, I got to go down to a launch. But for me, it's not, as I said, it's not just painting the painting, but it's getting to know the people, it's getting to being there, the whole field, smelling what it's like, seeing what it's like, and then you distill. And this is what pair, the other one is on exhibit at Kennedy Space Center. I have 2 at Kennedy Space Center, the Shuttle Discovery and Return to Flight. So if you happen to be there, look for them. I think they're on permanent exhibit. And then they actually, I didn't know this, but they go on exhibit, and I had no idea there wasn't one. Actually, the International Space Station was in Vero Beach. Last year, a friend happened to be there and called me and said, I saw your painting for the celebration of the 60th anniversary of NASA art program. So that was a real honor, but I didn't know until it popped up on Google, so sometimes you're not told where they end up. This is one of the studies, and I like that they included this in the show, because this, so basically I start with my drawings. I think I started very, how would I want to do it? Do I want to look at the side? I'm trying to figure out how I will portray it. How big am I going to do? Is it going to be close up or be far away? You can see some of the structures are different, but this kind of gave you an idea of you could have it floating. But I really wanted to have the Earth. So I think that that's why I did it from that vantage point where you can see the Earth. But I have a number of studies like this for the International Space Station. And then after I do this is actually very similar to the Massimoka piece, because I have 30 studies for Massimoka. I'm working on a color study book right now for that big piece, but I do a number of pencil studies, working it out in my head. And then I went to before you do the larger painting, because you don't want to make a mistake, I did maybe 5 studies just trying to figure out, or paintings, trying to figure out how I would do the sky and the Earth. So you can see how things changed. I decided, okay, I'm not going to look at it like that, but I'll have the Earth on the top. I think this was really trying to figure out how I would do the sky, and then I would use that as a blueprint for the final painting. I just remember thinking, you don't want it to be all even and equal, and it really had to look like the sky. And then even having, as I said, I used pastel, even having that, because you don't want it to smudge, that was also very tricky. The next painting I did, and this is I will also say if you go to my website, which is barbaraprey.com, there's a NASA section, so you can access the other paintings to see what they look like. I had started by saying they contacted me because they like my blues, although that sky was black. But the background of this is a very strong blue. After the Columbia disaster, NASA called and asked if I would do a commemorative painting for them, for their collection, because they had artists do. I think after the Challenger, they asked some artists to do paintings for them for their collection. And I should also backtrack, NASA has this incredible collection of American artists. They've had Robert Rauschenberg, Andy Warhol, so it started in the 60s, and they commissioned, and as I said, the funding was a lot more, so they would bring a number of artists down, and they tried to do well-known American artists to do paintings, and it went into the collection of, I think it's the Air and Space Museum, and also in NASA. So my last painting I did of the Discovery Shuttle return, the 3rd, is at NASA headquarters. Except they said I'm not supposed to tell anybody because I guess it's supposed to be down at Kennedy Space Center. But they kept it at NASA headquarters. So this was also a tricky, I shouldn't say tricky, but this was when they asked me to do a commemorative painting, I had no idea what I would do, because I knew it would be an important painting for NASA. It's a historical painting. They're actually inviting artists to document space history. So you're part of basically the history of space, which is really very exciting. But I was thinking of all the ideas, and what was really on my mind doing that is all the astronauts. And I know NASA sent me information, they sent me photos, they sent me pictures of the astronauts, and which I still have. But it was so moving to think about I was trying to think of something that was really positive, and everybody does a launch, so I was trying to find something that isn't a launch. But I kept on coming back to the launch because for me that was the time when these astronauts, and they were really amazing because I saw their videos and read their bios, had worked. This is what they had worked their whole lives to attain. And so this was the moment when they were just so excited to be taking off. And so that's why I chose to do this basically right before the disaster. But you can come and just see the pencil study. There's a lot of energy in here, trying to figure it out. I was able to see a launch, but it was after this. So this was the discovery I was able to see after the center. But you never know what happens to your artwork. An example is I've done a lot of work for the Arts and Embassies program. The ambassador to France had come and chose a painting that I had done after 9/11. So it had a flag on a church door up on Swans Island in Maine. And they loved that it was in French and American colors of the flags. And so it was in the entryway of the U.S. Embassy residence in Paris. But it had a totally different meaning for me totally different meaning for them. So after I painted this painting, and NASA actually made prints of all of the painting with a quote from the president. I think there's one in there. And they gave it to all of the astronauts' families. So you don't think that anything, I'm going down to the Air and Space Museum, this is very cool. And when I walked, it was in the IMAX theater, and I remember you have your little name tag. I sat down and I was in back with families. And this was probably I've done some really cool things, but this was a really one of my most moving experiences. They had on the big IMAX theater, they had all the videos of the astronauts, about the astronauts. And then they stood up and someone was up front and called up the families and gave them my print. And that was one of the most moving things for me to be part of. And it was really important to some of the families that had some really wonderful response and thank yous from that painting. But that was a really moving, this is a very personal part of this painting. And then NASA called me, again, this one is not in there, but if you go on my website, you'll see the Shuttle discovered and returned to flight link. So that was another important when the space station went back after the tragedy. And that was when I was able to go down and look at the shuttle, and I got to see a lift off. You go up and there's water, right, and then you have this wonderful reflection into the water and all the smoke, and then the earth is rumbling. It was just a really wonderful, of course I'm trying to think how to paint it, but I'm so awed by the experience of seeing it take off. So that painting actually is the one at NASA headquarters, and that's the size of this, and there's a lot of the first one, there's a lot of blue. This is one that, again, no one has seen. These have all been on my flat files. Charlie Riley, the director, came over and looked at my flat files and said, I like this and this and this. So it's really exciting for me because there's this series of drawings that were really important in finishing the final painting. This was cool. NASA flew me out to Edwards Air Force Base to see the X-43 take off. The X-43 is the fastest aircraft in the world. What they did, the X-43 is this tiny little, I did a drawing of it right here, and they attached it to a Pegasus rocket. So this must be the Pegasus rocket, and they put it on a B-52 bomber. And then it took off. And I was fortunate I got to go with the media on the runway with and I have to double check this, F-15, F-17 fighter jets. It went, and then one of them went first. But it was just so cool to be like right there because the jets are going right by you. And it was a successful launch. They basically launched it, and then it went 10 times this speed of sound. And they're hoping, and this was a couple of years ago, a number of years ago, but that we'll be going to Hong Kong in 2 years. This is basically the research for really fast travel. This was also really special because they let me out on the tarmac 1 hour before it took off. So I was able to go off and draw. So this is an immediate drawing from the tarmac. No photos, just my impression of what it was like to be there. And what I thought was so cool, so I was just sitting on the ground, but you have everybody was dressed in blue, all the people getting it ready to go, and I just remember these big boxes and lots of cords going in. So to be able to watch, I'm drawing, but also to hear everything that's going on, to get this plane to take off was just so cool. It's really part of the painting. I was able to do, I think, 2 or maybe 3 drawings, but I knew there was pressure, I knew I had to draw quickly, and I wanted to get the sense of this. And there was somebody who came to the opening of the show, and I don't know if he's here, but he had flown this B-52 bomber because he recognized the number. I thought that was very kind of cool. So this became the X-43, which is in the collection of Edwards Air Force Base. Out in the Mojave Desert. And again, if you Google, you'll see that. That's a large painting, and I basically just did the rocket and behind it. Are you all set to go. Should we go into the ephemera quickly? The president. And this was actually, this gives you an idea. First, when we first went to do the International Space Station, I think this is possibly part of it. So we got to see that. That's my model of the and then this is me when I was talking about drawing on site. That was actually probably when I'm doing that drawing there. But it was quick, no photos, quick, do it quickly. And then this is signing the prints that they gave to all the astronaut families. You can see I have my commemorative tag on.